Hello class. In this video we're going to look at two examples of least common multiples. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. On this first problem, okay, we're going to look to see what the least common multiple is between 10x squared and 30xy squared. Alright, now to do that we've got to basically break down the 10 and the 30 to begin with, and then break down the x squared and the y squared, which we don't have to because they're variables. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at the 10 x squared first. Okay, so the 10x squared, when we break that down, what we got to do is break down the 10, okay, which gives us 2 times 5. And that's basically broken down at that point. So that's going to be a 2 and a 5. And also we have an x squared here, so that's my other factor. So 10x squared broken down is a 2 and a 5 and an x squared. Those are the three factors for 10x squared. Now for 30, xy squared, we want to break that down also. Now to do that, okay, we're going to do the same thing, which we're going to break down to 30. And that's going to be, was it 2 and a 15, right? And then a 2 and a 3 and a 5. So 30 broken down is going to be a 2, a 3, and a 5. And also, the other factors is going to be an x, okay, and a y squared. Okay? So now that we've done that, okay, we're going to look at all of the factors that we found, okay, for those two numbers, or the two monomials that we're looking at. Alright, and we're going to represent them in our least common multiple. So in our least common multiple, in our least common multiple, one of the rules is that all of the factors that we found, we have to represent them at least once. So we have a 2 here and a 2 here, so we have to represent that one time. We have a 3 here, it doesn't exist here, but we still have to represent that one time. Okay. We have 2 5s where we have to represent that one time. And then we've got an x on both of these, so we have to represent that one time. And then here we've got a y. Okay? Now, that's part of the first rule. The second rule in finding the least common multiple is to basically use the factors with the highest power. And in this case, the case of 2, they're both the same, so that stays 2 to the first power. And the 3 is the same, it's to the first power. The 5 is the same to the first power. However, for our x's, okay, the x squared has the highest power, so that's what we're going to use. And then for the y squared, we only have 1, which is to the second power. Alright? So, to get our least common multiple, what we do is we multiply all these numbers together, and we get our least common multiple. So 2 times 3 times 5 is basically 30. Alright? And then x squared, y squared. So this is our least common multiple between these two numbers. Alright, so let's look at a polynomial. So let's look at g minus 1. Okay, and let's look at a g squared plus 3g minus 4. Okay. In order to find the least common multiple between these two polynomials, which is this and this right here, okay, we've got to break them down if we can. All right. So for g minus 1, okay, looking at it, it is a prime. We cannot break this down. There's no factoring method that we can use to actually break this down anymore. So that is going to be g minus 1. It stays the same. Now for this one, okay, this one looks like we can break it down. And we can break this down using what's known as a is equals to 1 factoring is what we use in my class. And basically what we do is we look for two numbers. And when we multiply them together, we get negative 4. And when we add those same two numbers, we get the value of 3. Alright, so those two numbers are, let's see, 1 and 4, I believe. Alright, but one of them has to be negative. Okay, so we take negative 1 times 4, we get negative 4. Negative 1 plus a 4 gives us a positive 3. So that's what we use. And so basically, our factored form of this polynomial, we're going to use these two numbers we just found, a positive 4 and a negative 1. And since we're using g as our variable, that's what we plug in to the rest of the formula. All right? So this is the factor form of g squared plus 3g minus 4. So I'm going to write that down right here. All right? So that'll be g minus 1 and g plus 4. Okay. Now, next step is to basically follow the same rules that we've been following before. Okay, for all of the factors that we found, which is these right here, okay, we're going to write for our least common multiple. I'm going to write it down here. For our least common multiple, we have to write down the factors that we found at least one time. So I have a g minus 1 and a g minus 1, so I have to write that at least one time. All right. Then I've got a g plus 4 and a g plus 4. Now, the second rule is we have to find the factor with the highest power, but g minus 1 to the first power to the first power, they're both the same, so this stays the same, and this one is to the first power, so this stays the same. So our least common multiple is this, all right? Now, also, once again, this can be rewritten as, something that's multiplied together, or we can leave it as in factored form. Now, this multiplied together is simply this right here. So have we broke that down, right? We broke this down. So you might also get, this is an answer, g plus 3g minus 4. This could also be the correct answer. All right? Thank you.